Welcome to the deep dive. We're starting today with a really tragic event, the terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir on April 22nd.
Yeah, truly awful news. 26 men killed.
And the details are just horrifying. Reports say the victims, mostly Hindu tourists, were actually singled out, asked their names, told to recite Islamic verses.
It points to a very deliberate, targeted kind of violence. Incredibly disturbing.
Definitely. And the scale. It's the worst attack targeting tourists there since the insurgency kicked off way back in '89, and the deadliest attack overall since 2019.
It really throws that region and the ongoing tensions right back into the spotlight, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So to help us understand what's happening now, the fallout, the implications, we're going to dig into some analysis from The Economist. Their piece is titled, "India Must Prove Pakistan's Complicity in the Attack in Kashmir."
A very pointed title suggests where the focus needs to be.
Exactly. So our mission here is to unpack the immediate reactions, look the whole question of evidence, which seems critical, and sort of map out the delicate situation between India and Pakistan right now.
All right. Where do we start? The immediate aftermath.
Yeah, let's start there. India's reaction was, well, swift and strong. Prime Minister Modi's statement really stood out.
Right. He said India will identify, track, and punish every terrorist and their backers.
And notably, he said it in English.
Hmm.
The Economist piece points this out. It's rare for him, apparently.
Which probably signals how seriously India is taking this, perhaps aiming that message internationally as well.
Makes sense. And it wasn't just words, was it? We saw actions pretty quickly.
Definitely. Navy missile drills on April 27th, expelling some Pakistani diplomats.
Yeah.
And that big move, suspending the Indus Water Treaty, that agreement's from 1960, so that's significant.
Wow, yeah. And there were reports of shooting across the border, too, right, over several nights.
That's right. Exchanges of fire. It all, painted a picture of really high tension. The potential for things to get worse felt very real.
So a strong response package from India. But underneath it all, this brings us to the really crucial question.
The evidence. Right.
Exactly. India is saying pretty clearly they believe Pakistan was involved, cross-border involvement.
And the local police, they're reportedly looking for specific individuals, 2 Pakistanis and 1 Indian national.
Okay, so leads are being followed. And then there's this group, the Resistance Front, the TRF.
Ah, yes, the TRF, their role is interesting. They apparently claimed responsibility first on social media.
They did. But then they took it back, said they were hacked.
Which is odd, isn't it? Claim responsibility for something so major, then immediately deny it. You have to wonder what the thinking is there. What's the strategy?
That's a huge question mark. And understanding the TRF is key to this whole potential Pakistan link, right?
Absolutely. This group only popped up in 2019, right after India changed Jammu and Kashmir's status.
Right, revoked the semi-autonomous status. And India designated them a terrorist group just last year in 2023.
And Indian intelligence seems convinced, or at least strongly suspects, that TRF is basically a cover, a front for Lashkar-e-Taiba.
DUT. Now, there's a name many will recognize. Pakistan-based, linked to numerous attacks in Kashmir, and responsible for the huge Mumbai attacks in 2008.
Yeah, nearly 170 people killed then. And Leti, as The Economist notes, has documented ties to Pakistani intelligence services.
But here's the crucial bit, and The Economist stresses this. India hasn't yet shown public, verifiable proof that specifically links TRF to Leti in this attack.
And that gap, that lack of public evidence, it really matters, doesn't it? Intelligence might suggest links, but for international legitimacy, for justifying major responses.
You need proof you can show the world.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Without it, any big military move risks looking like, well, aggression rather than justified self-defense or counterterrorism.
Which leads us straight into thinking about India's response options. The Economist acknowledges, India certainly has a right to react to such a horrific attack.
Of course. A right to seek justice, to deter future attacks.
But the challenge, the massive challenge, is balancing that with the risk of escalation. We're talking about 2 nuclear-armed states here.
The stakes just couldn't be higher. Any misstep could be catastrophic.
And we've seen India retaliate before, haven't we? After similar attacks.
Yes, in 2019 and 2016, India conducted airstrikes, sent troops into Pakistan-administered Kashmir. There's precedent.
Plus, Modi made that promise back in 2019, didn't he? To bring peace to Kashmir by taking direct control. So there's likely political pressure to act decisively now, too.
Huge domestic pressure, almost certainly. But as you said, the situation is so volatile. Look at how Pakistan reacts.
Like shooting down that Indian drone recently.
Mm-hmm.
And the defense minister warning about a possible Indian strike.
Mm-hmm. And remember 2019? They shot down an Indian jet, captured the pilot.
Thankfully returned him. But The Economist raises a point. Maybe Pakistan, under General Munir now, won't be so accommodating this time.
Yeah, they suggest he might even use a crisis like this to distract from problems at home. It makes Pakistan's reaction much less predictable, maybe.
Definitely adds another layer of uncertainty. The risk of miscalculation on either side just seems enormous.
It really does. Which highlights why maybe looking beyond purely military options is so important right now.
Exactly what The Economist seems to suggest. Restraint might be needed, at least until there's undeniable proof linking the attack directly to actors in Pakistan.
Right. Targeted strikes on the militants, if that proof emerges, could be one thing.
But hitting, say, Pakistani military bases without clear evidence of army involvement, that seems incredibly risky.
Extremely risky. So what else could India do? The article floats some ideas.
Right.
Well, one is gathering solid proof and then publishing it. Really put Pakistan on the spot internationally, build pressure that way. Shame them, essentially.
Take a diplomatic and public relations offensive. What else?
Another idea mentioned is finding ways to disrupt that big IMF bailout for Pakistan, the $7 billion package.
Hitting them economically, that would definitely create pressure.
Significant pressure, you'd imagine. And then there's the Indus Water Treaty suspension.
Right, we mentioned that, the symbolic aspect.
Exactly. It's not like it immediately cuts off huge amounts of water, but it sends a very strong signal, doesn't it? A message about needing a different kind of relationship.
So, pulling back a bit, what does this all mean for the bigger picture, India's long-term goals?
Well, The Economist makes this interesting point that the constant tension with Pakistan can sometimes be a distraction for India.
How so?
India has these ambitions, right, to be a major regional power, maybe even global, to benefit from shifts in global trade, like the U.S.-China issues.
Okay.
A major conflict, or even just constant high tension with Pakistan, kind of sucks up resources and attention, potentially derailing those bigger plans.
And the timing of this attack is also noted, isn't it?
Yeah.
Coinciding with the U.S. Vice President's visit.
Yeah, J.D. Vance was in India. It raises questions about, geopolitical signaling, intentional or not.
So, connecting that to the long game,
Yeah.
what's the strategic advice?
The argument presented is that India's main long-term strategic challenge isn't really Pakistan, it's China. Beijing, not Islamabad.
Right.
So the recommendation, essentially, is to prioritize modernizing India's military as a deterrent against both Pakistan and, more importantly, perhaps, China. That's seen as the path to achieving its wider strategic goals.
Okay, so focusing on building overall strength is the best long-term strategy.
That seems to be the takeaway.
Right. So let's try and wrap this up. It's an incredibly complex situation. India needs to respond to this awful attack,
Understandably so.
but has to tread so carefully with Pakistan, given the nuclear dimension. And this whole issue of evidence getting verifiable proof seems absolutely central.
It's the linchpin, really, for justifying actions, for international support.
And all this is happening while India is trying to pursue these much larger regional ambitions, navigating relationships with the U.S., with China.
A very intricate balancing act.
It really is. Which brings us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to think about. Given this incredibly fragile balance, the nuclear risks, the long-term goals, what are the best ways for nations to deal with cross-border terrorism effectively, but without sparking a wider war?
And maybe also, how does the role of other big global players like the U.S. and China influence these kinds of decisions in volatile regions?
There's a lot
to consider.